What happens when a former royal sits down with Britain's cheekiest talk show host, and everything goes horribly off script? Tonight, we're breaking down one of the most jaw-dropping moments in British television history. The night Meghan Markle appeared on the Norton show and ended up being asked to leave. This wasn't just awkward. It was seismic. A cultural flashpoint where charm collided with confrontation, and the fallout was unforgettable. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below. What do you think really set this firestorm off? The red chair was spinning, the audience buzzing, and Norton was in his element. Mischievous as ever. Nobody, not even Graham himself, could have predicted the powder keg about to detonate. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Meghan Markle. Graham's voice boomed with flair as Meghan stepped into the lights, poised, polished, and wrapped in an elegant black dress that shimmered under the studio glare. She smiled, waved, and made her way to the iconic red sofa. But behind the smile, there was a flicker of tension. "Meghan, wonderful to have you here." Graham beamed air, kissing like the seasoned host he was. "You look absolutely stunning. Thank you, Graham. It's lovely to be here." Meghan replied smoothly, but her tone had an edge. She was ready, guarded. Then Graham pounced. "You've been making quite the headlines lately," he teased. "Some say you're now Britain's most talked about export, even if you're technically not British anymore." The audience laughed. Meghan didn't. Her smile tightened. "I think it's interesting how the media frames certain narratives," she said coolly. "I'm here to talk about my current projects, not rehash the past." Graham's grin widened. "But the past is so much juicier than the present, isn't it?" He leaned in. "I mean, you've gone from suits to suits of armor. Metaphorically speaking, of course." Meghan didn't flinch, but her body language shifted. Controlled, defensive. "I'm focused on moving forward. I'm here because I care about the causes I support, not because I want to relive old drama." But Graham wasn't done. "Surely you can understand the public's fascination. It's not every day someone walks away from a fairy tale." That was the trigger. The temperature in the studio dropped. I think calling it a fairy tale is a simplistic way of describing what was, in truth, an extremely complex and painful situation. Meghan replied, her voice tight. Graham raised an eyebrow. From the outside, it did look a bit like someone deciding the crown was a bit too heavy. If you'll pardon the expression, the audience had stopped laughing. This wasn't fun anymore. This was war. Meghan sat up straighter. "There's a difference between choosing your own path and running away from responsibility, Graham. I've never run away from anything in my life." Graham leaned in, eyes gleaming. "Then would you say you ran toward something better? Because that's what people want to know. Was it worth it?" For a heartbeat, Meghan's eyes flashed. Anger, hurt, she buried it. "I don't need to justify my personal choices to anyone. Least of all, on national television." Graham chuckled, but it was hollow. "Well, isn't that what coming on television is for? Otherwise, you could have just sent a press release and stayed home." A silence. Utter silence. The audience could feel it. This wasn't clever banter anymore. This was personal, unforgiving. "I came here in good faith," Meghan said quietly, but with steel in her voice. "I was told this would be a conversation about my work, not a televised character assassination." Graham's brows arched in exaggerated surprise. "Character assassination? Come now." "Meghan, I'm merely asking the questions any reasonable viewer would." Meghan's voice cooled a degree. "I expected professionalism, Graham. The same respect you afford your other guests." Graham's reply dripped with velvet, sharp politeness. "And I am respecting you, exactly as I would any public figure who makes headline-grabbing choices, yet assumes those choices won't be examined." The gloves were off. Meghan straightened, a spark slipping through the cracks of her composure. "Controversial. I made the decisions that protected my family. I never asked for your approval." "No," Graham shot back. But you did ask for the public's attention. Attention breeds scrutiny. Surely someone as media savvy as you knows that equation. The studio felt primed to ignite. Cameras inched closer. Meghan's voice edged upward. Some people can't handle it when someone refuses to play by their rules. They'd rather tear you down than lift you up. A Graham's smile turned to steel. And some people love to claim victimhood the moment their choices face honest questions. History doesn't rewrite itself just because you dislike the mirror. The audience held its breath. Meghan cut through the hush. Did you just accuse me of playing the victim? That's rich from someone whose career is built on gossiping about other people's lives. A flash of irritation crossed Graham's face. Gone in a blink. Not gossip, Meghan. Professional curiosity. When you make seismic choices, people naturally ask why. Meghan laughed, void of humor, curiosity. Please. This is a hit job. You lured me here under false pretenses just to ambush me with tired talking points. In the control room, producers hovered over the commercial button. Graham's composure finally frayed. Ambush. You agreed to this seat. No one chained you to that sofa. I came to discuss my work. Meghan fired back. Not your petty judgments about my personal life. Clearly, you had another agenda. Graham leaned back, annoyance replacing charm. My only agenda is an honest conversation for my audience. If honest talk unnerves you, perhaps television interviews aren't your arena. Meghan's voice rose, composure slipping. Honest. You've baited me since I walked on, hoping I'd hand you a sound bite. I don't need to twist anything, Graham answered coolly. Your own words carry their weight. Silence blanketed the room. Meghan's voice quavered. Anger hurt. Which of my actions offend you, Graham? Leaving a toxic environment, protecting my family, choosing happiness over public approval. Graham's eyes glinted, sensing blood. Not the actions, the spin. The endless campaign to paint yourself as the innocent party. Meghan leaned forward, fire in her eyes. I've never claimed innocence. I simply refused to shoulder blame for things that weren't my doing. Yet some repercussions were foreseeable. Graham pressed. Can you admit that? Meghan's jaw set. Every choice has consequences. But I won't apologize for choosing my well, being over other people's expectations. The audience sat frozen, witnessing a live duel. 2 smiles long gone, replaced by open steel. Graham let the sarcasm drip. So other people's expectations. Is that what we're calling duty now? The word duty hung like a thrown gauntlet. Meghan's eyes burned. For a heartbeat, she looked ready to walk, but instead she leaned in, voice lowered to a lethal whisper. Don't you dare lecture me about duty, Graham Norton. You sit here cracking jokes about other people's pain and think that entitles you to judge their lives. Graham's tone stayed velvet, but the barbs were unmistakable. I'm not judging Meghan, just noting that choices create ripples, sometimes for more than the chooser. Meghan's words trembled with fury. What do you know about the fallout from my choices? Were you there when the press shredded me? When my mental health cratered? When I had to decide between my family's safety and some abstract sense of duty? For the first time, Graham's expression softened. Of course I wasn't there. None of us were. We only see what's shown and what we're told. The Meghan seized the opening. Exactly. You're judging a narrative built to cast me as the villain. No one's trying to make you a villain, Graham replied, though even he didn't sound convinced. Meghan pressed. Then why aren't we discussing my charities or new projects? Why the obsession with relitigating my past? Graham hesitated. The audience felt the shift. Because those aren't the questions people care about. They want to know why you walked away. No, Meghan shot back. They want to judge me for it. Big difference. Both realized this was no longer a talk show chat. It was a war for narrative control. Graham exhaled. Perhaps we should move on too. Oh no, Graham. Meghan cut in. You opened this door. Let's walk through it. Why do you and so many others believe you can dictate how I should live? Graham's charm cracked, replaced by steel. Public figures owe the public transparency. A responsibility to be miserable. Meghan scoffed. To sacrifice happiness for others' comfort. That isn't duty. That's servitude. The word servitude hit Graham like a slap. Color rose in his cheek. A dramatic description of serving one's country, he said tightly. Meghan laughed bitter. Serve looked more like being fed to the wolves for public entertainment. Graham bristled. Fed to the wolves? You had every privilege, education, resources, a global platform. Most people would volunteer for that feast. Meghan's fury flared. Privilege. You call media persecution and ignored mental health crisis a privilege. Graham's voice matched hers now. You could have made it work. You chose not to. That's not destruction, Meghan. That's quitting. The audience gasped. Meghan's voice cracked. I fought for 3 years, while being torn apart. How long must I bleed before I'm allowed to save myself? Graham, stung but stubborn, wouldn't retreat. I'm saying you might have left without torching every bridge. Meghan sprang to her feet, chair screeching. Those bridges were already on fire. I just refused to burn with them. Pandemonium. Producers waved frantically off stage as the clash spiraled beyond any scripted spectacle. Audience members whispered in stunned disbelief. Camera operators hesitated, unsure whether to zoom in on Meghan's furious glare or Graham's stone-faced posture. Oh, please, Graham scoffed, rising from his chair. You're painting yourself as a helpless victim of circumstance. But let's be honest, every move you made was calculated to benefit you. Meghan's voice cracked with rage. Benefit me? You think walking away from everything I'd built, being smeared by the press, and watching my reputation disintegrate was beneficial? She took a breath, voice trembling. What exactly do you think I gained from that? Graham didn't blink. The warmth was gone. You gained freedom. The power to monetize your story. A platform to play the victim whenever it suits you. That was the final blow. Meghan's face drained of color. She spoke so softly it cut like ice. How dare you? How dare you accuse me of profiting off my pain? How dare you suggest that I dragged my family through hell for a paycheck? Graham stood firm, unmoved. I'm not suggesting. I'm stating the facts. You left. You cashed in. You turned your life into a brand. If that's not monetizing your story, what is? The studio was silent. Even the audience shifted uneasily. No one had expected a talk show to unravel into raw emotional warfare. Meghan stared at him. The fact that you can reduce everything I went through to a business transaction tells me exactly who you are. Her tone was razor sharp now. You're not a journalist, Graham. You're not even a decent interviewer. You're just another bully hiding behind a desk. Graham's face flushed crimson. No, just a minute. I've been doing this for decades. No one has ever accused me of being a bully. Meghan smirked. Well, first time for everything. Graham's voice dropped, sharp and icy. If you can't handle tough questions, Meghan, maybe you shouldn't be a public figure. Meghan let out a hollow, bitter laugh. Tough questions. This wasn't an interview. This was a setup, a psychological ambush dressed up as journalism. Graham's jaw tightened. I call it accountability. Something you clearly struggle with. Meghan grabbed her purse. The only thing I'm struggling with is why I ever agreed to speak to someone who made up their mind about me before I even walked in. Graham narrowed his eyes. So now you're leaving. How convenient. Meghan Markle runs the second someone challenges her narrative. She turned back, eyes blazing. You're right. I am leaving. Because I don't need to sit here and be insulted by a man who values his own ego over human decency. The Graham's next words hit like a slap. Human decency. Coming from someone who built her brand by throwing her own family under the bus. Gasps rippled across the studio. People were covering their mouths. A few even rose from their seats, unsure whether to walk out or bear witness to the car crash in motion. Meghan froze. Her voice dropped to a chilling calm. "That's enough. I'm done." She turned toward the exit, but Graham called after her. "Of course you are. You're always done when someone dares to question your fairy tale." Meghan stopped in her tracks. Her voice, when it came, was cold steel. My narrative is that I'm a human being who made impossible choices under unbearable pressure. My narrative is that I chose to survive while people like you treated my suffering as prime-time entertainment." Graham squared his shoulders, tone sharp as glass. "And my narrative is that you're someone who refuses to accept the consequences of your own actions." They stared at each other. Two public figures, two worldviews, locked in an unscripted showdown. The audience sat frozen, unsure if they were watching the collapse of a career or the rise of something bigger. Meghan finally spoke. "I don't need to prove anything to you. Or anyone. I know who I am. And your opinion says more about you than it ever could about me." She turned once more, heels clicking on the floor. But then, Graham delivered the line that would echo across headlines the next day. "Security will show you out." It landed like a death sentence. Gasps, stunned silence, and disbelief filled the room. Had Graham Norton just thrown someone off his show? Meghan turned, poised and unshaken. "I don't need security to escort me. I'm perfectly capable of leaving on my own. Which, as you've so smugly pointed out, seems to be something I'm quite good at." And with that, she walked off set, shoulders back, head high, leaving behind a stunned audience and a host whose polished image had cracked in real time. The studio doors closed behind her. Graham remained standing, alone on his stage, the silence around him heavier than applause had ever been. The audience didn't know what to do. Applaud, boo, or simply sit in stunned silence at what they had just witnessed. And that, dear viewer, is how a routine celebrity interview became a cultural reckoning. Because sometimes, when you push someone too far, they don't just walk away. They make sure everyone sees exactly why. So what really triggered this meltdown? Was it Graham's relentless questions, Meghan's refusal to conform? Or something deeper, about power, perception, and the price of speaking your truth? Tell us what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more shocking moments like this one.